Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and good day. We are from group 7, consists of me, Wahidah, Kamilah binti Razalli.
Me, HANANI binti SHUKOR.
And me, FAQIHAH binti AHMAD FAUZI.
And me, PATRRICIA di Silva, daughter of Godfrey di Silva.
So today we are going to present on the Act of Parliament gazetted as the Vaccination Act 2020. Let me start our group presentation first by reciting Ayatul Quran from Surah Al-Baqarah verse 195. A'udzubillahi minasyaitonir rajim wa anfiqu fi sabilillahi wa la tulqu bi aydikum ila at-tahlukati wa ahsinu innallaha yuhibbul muhsinin, which means spend in the cause of Allah and do not let your own hands throw you into destruction by withholding, and do good, for Allah certainly loves the good doers. So how we are going to do the presentation today is that in this act, it is divided into 7 parts, and we are going to present part by part and not section by section per se. So as mentioned before, our Act of Parliament is regarding the vaccination. Vaccination is not specified to the contagious disease only, but to give immunization to our body so that it can fight the dangerous virus such as cervical cancer. We have HPV shot. Thus, the purpose why this act is enacted, which can be seen here in the screen, whereas it is important to acknowledge the significance of vaccination to the people as to protect themselves at earlier stage from the diseases, whether it is contagious or not. Second, whereas it is for the benefit of all citizens of Malaysia and those who have the permanent resident status to take vaccine accordingly with the prescription from the Ministry of Health in Malaysia. And lastly, it is pursuant to Article 74, Clause 1 of Federal Constitution, which construed that Parliament may make law regarding the health matter on item 14, first list ninth schedule. With regard to the application in the jurisprudence matter, first I start with the Islamic jurisprudence where there are 3 methods altogether, which is maslahah mursalah, saddu zara'a, and also istihsan. The reason why is that this act has the preventative measure that clearly can be seen in the purpose to protect the people. This act also can bring the good rather than bad, as impose the law on the vaccination part. It may seem as to push the people to accept the vaccination through enforcement, but in the same time, it is to protect the maqasid syariah, which is the life of people. So in the application of Western jurisprudence, this may be seen on the historical school and also legal positivism school. It is because before this act was enacted, we go back to the history on the pandemic itself, which is we have Ebola virus, H1N1 virus, and also MERS virus. And we came to the conclusion that we need to have an enforcement which to comply the people to be vaccinated so we can prevent this from early stage. Now I pass to the next presenter.
Okay, first of all, under part 1, it contains 3 sections, which provided that under section 1, this act is designated as Vaccination Act 2020, and under section 2, it is applicable throughout Malaysia and entered into force on the date specified by the Minister by notification in the Gazette. Meanwhile, under section 3, it provided the definition of related terms, such as the definition of child, contagious disease, endemic, epidemic, pandemic, parents, private vaccinator, unvaccinated person, unprotected child or adult, and vaccination circle. In this part, we can relate with the theory of law by a positivist jurist, Jeremy Bentham, which promoted codification of law or statutory provisions by the sovereign in regards with the human conduct. He stated that unwritten law is vague and difficult to be interpreted. Therefore, in this part, codification of law can be seen through the creation of this statute, Vaccination Act 2020, for the protection of the society at large from any diseases, regardless it is mild or severe, or contagious or not contagious. And as a consequence, any uncertainties or ambiguities in regards with the requirement of immunization of the society can be prevented. Next, under part 2, this part contains 4 sections regarding Malaysian Vaccination Council. For section 4, It provided the purpose of the establishment of the council and who are the members of the council. In section 5, it provided the duties and powers of the council, whereby when they issued any procedure of vaccination, it shall be binding on every vaccinator and ensure the safeness of the vaccine with the vaccination research for the usage of public. If they were found that the vaccine is not safe to use, the council shall have the power to ban the vaccine in Malaysia. Meanwhile, in section 6, in regards with any act or neglect committed by the council or any member in the council, Public Authorities Protection Act 1948 shall be applicable to initiate an action or suit against the said member. Lastly, under section 7, the Minister of Health has the power on the issuance of any direction, and the state direction shall be binding on the council. Now we relate with the concept of law by the jurist from Analytical School of Jurisprudence, John Austin. He stated that a law is defined as a rule laid down for the guidance of an intelligent being by an intelligent being having power over him. To put in another way, rules are implemented by the sovereign to serve as a guidance to the society, and this can be seen through the enactment of this act, that the Ministry of Health enacted this Vaccination Act to serve as a guidance for the citizens on the matter of immunization. Further, Austin also stated that there are three elements of law, which are command, duty, and sanction. Under this part, it implies that the Ministry of Health has the command to give any direction to the Council, and the Council has the duty to follow such command. If any member of the Council was found to neglect or commit anything contrary to the statute, Public Authorities Protection Act 1948 will be applicable to have a sanction to be imposed on the said member who failed to obey his duty to follow such command. Now I pass the next slide to the next presenter.
Next, for part 3, which is about the vaccination premises, there are two sections. Section 8 is about the division of vaccination area, and section 9 about the premises for vaccination. So under this part 3, we can relate to the Islamic principle, which is maslahah musalah, which is based on the Quran, Surah Al-Ma'idah, verse 6. God never intends to impose hardship upon people. And this provision is proper and harmonious with the one of the objective of the lawgiver, which is protection of life. And it secures a benefit and prevents harm where the division of vaccination area eases the citizens of Malaysia to get the vaccination in their respective area. And in accordance with the Western principle, which is sociological school, according to Emil Durkheim, he gives primacy to the society rather than to individual. Thus, the prevention for a private health center to give vaccination unless it is registered under the Ministry of Health is to prevent the queue jumping by the privileged, which cause the poor nations will be left out. And applying the sociological school, this method is to ensure that there is fair distribution of vaccination for the social benefits and burden among the members of the community. Next, under the part 4, which is regarding the vaccinators, there are 4 sections. Under section 10 is regarding the appointment of vaccinators, where he or she must possess certain qualification or certification, which we can relate to the Islamic principle, which is ijma', where a person who was qualified to perform ijma' must be the person who has knowledge of Quran and Sunnah. So same with the medical profession, it must also be performed by the one who has medical knowledge and the one who expert in the medical practices. Next, section 11 in regards to the private vaccinator, and section 13 stated, section 12 stated the no fee shall be charged by any vaccinators except a private vaccinator. And lastly, section 13 in regards of the inspection before vaccination. So we can relate to the masalah musalah again, where under Al-A'raf verse 157, which means he enjoins upon them what is good and forbids them what is evil. He makes the clean things lawful to them and prohibits all corrupt things. In the context of Islamic medicine, The Muslim community is obliged to take halal and pure medicines. And vaccination is one of the preventative measures taken to prevent the harmful life or threatening illness. Thus, it is wrong for the government to be paid for the vaccination. And one of the legal maxim in Islamic jurisprudence, which is no harm should be inflicted, no reciprocated, shows that it is important to inspect the current health and condition before the vaccination in order to prevent any dangerous complication towards the person after vaccinated. And lastly, we can relate to the Western principle, which is legal positivism, which is no fee to be charged, and the inspection before vaccination is needed to prevent the greater general pain, since under the legal positivism, the objective is to increase the community's total happiness. Next, I will pass to the next presenter.
So now for the part 5, its heading is vaccination, because it is focusing more on the procedure itself on the vaccination to the people. In this section, it contains 6 sections altogether, which can be seen here. First, section 14, the effect of commencements of the act. This act, section 15, vaccination for child. Section 16, unprotected child from vaccination. Section 17, punishment for the failure to have the child to be vaccinated. Section 18, person being exempted from vaccination. And lastly, section 19, post-effect of vaccination. As for the application for jurisprudence, it is the same as the beginning for the Islamic jurisprudence, which is maslaha mursalah, saddu zara'a, and also istihsan. This is because it is to the benefits of the children and the people as a whole. So as for the Western jurisprudence, we use the sociological school here. Why? Because to make this section, we need to make surveys, statistical analysis to observe the data on how affected the children and the people that did not get the vaccine to achieve to this conclusion in dynamic and towards the development of the society itself. Now I pass to the last presenter.
Thank you. So this is the 6th part of the Vaccination Act 2020, and this will be about the certificate of vaccination. So this part consists of 4 sections, respectively section 20, which explains about the procedure for being exempted from vaccination, section 21, which explains about the crime of forgery of certificate, section 22, it explains about the penalty of forgery of certificate, like how much their punishment due to their offense, and section 23 is about the liability of the Director of State Health in forgery of certificate. Thus, this part of the act can be related to an Islamic principle which is known as Sad Darai. Okay, this theory of Islamic jurisprudence of Sad al-Darai, which means leading to certain and either beneficial or harmful. Muslim juries are in agreement that this type of permissible act is to be blocked. There are 3 types of permissible acts which lead to an evil, which is permissible acts which are rarely leading to evil. Secondly, permissible acts which most likely leading to an evil. And third and lastly, permissible acts which are taken as a mean, not for the purpose what has been legalized. Thus, this Vaccination Act 2020 can be related to this concept, as there should not be any unlawful intention in doing so, for example, such as forgery. This concept can be related in order to prohibit the people from doing evil act with evil intention, such as forgery. Thus, this concept is relatable as it secures the benefits of people and also punishes the wrongdoers, as it ensures a fair benefits within the society itself. So moving on to the next part of this act is the part 7, which explains about the occurrence of endemic, epidemic, and also pandemic. This part contains 4 sections as well. And the section 24 of this part, it explains about the occurrence of endemic, whereas section 25 of this part explains about the occurrence of epidemic, and section 26 of this part explains about occurrence of pandemic, and lastly section 27. This particular section, it explains more on the failure to comply with section 26. So this particular part can be related to theory of law by Jeremy Bentham, which the concept by Jeremy Bentham explains more where the law is the volition of the declarations by the political head in order to ensure attainment of maximum happiness of the maximum people in the society. Bentham also explains about this concept where it revolves around individual utilitarianism, and it concerns with the theory of pain and pleasure, which means the purpose of the law to reduce the pain and harms and pleasure in the society. This particular act that we have created, which is the Vaccination Act 2020, in order for the benefit of people, although there are certain restrictions that are unlikely to be followed by the community, thus this act mainly gives the best for the community in order to provide equality to all the people in a very fair state. So that is all from us today. Thank you.